My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And I'm doing this show the night before the election, so I thought I'd get a few more words in. So I don't know how to predict elections, and I'm not looking at all these polls, but of what I do know, it seems really interesting because almost all the polls have it 50-50, so you have no idea who's going to win. But I'm just thinking about this because it seems like a lot of these polls, though, there's all of these extra ones that nobody even knows about that are being put in there by Republicans to skew the numbers. So that's a possibility. Now, there could be Democratic ones that are also skewing the numbers. But it seems really odd that there's so many pollsters out there and they're all basically saying the same thing. Now, it doesn't make sense because you would think that there would be some outliers either way. So I'm not really sure how it's going to work. The other thing that I would look at, and again, I'm not a professional pollster here, but when they're doing these polls, they're looking at likely voters, voters who have voted before. So in that sense, there's a good possibility that there's a lot of new registered voters that are not being taken into account here. And typically the new voters that are just registering, they're young. And the younger voters tend to be more liberal. So I think that that might be something that's not being taken into account. So if Kamala Harris wins this election, I'm going to take a guess and say it's probably going to be the young people that push her through. The other one that could happen is that it could be that women are the ones who end up pushing Kamala Harris to victory here. But I'm not so sure because when we look at previous elections, white women tend to vote Republican, and they have for like the last 50, 60, 70 years, which is very interesting. And with Donald Trump, the first time he ran for president and he won, it was 52% of white women voted for him. Now, the last time it was 2020 when he lost, 55% of white women voted for him, which is really strange. So with all the bad things that he did, all the misogyny, add it all up, that he actually gained more popularity with white women. And so when we're seeing a trend in early voting that all of these women seem to be voting more than men, I don't really know if that's a positive thing for Kamala Harris or not. A lot of these pollsters are saying that it could be, but I would question that. So the other question that comes up is, why do white women so much vote Republican when they're voting away their rights? And it comes up that the biggest benefactor of affirmative action in this country, because affirmative action is this really bad word, right? Like we don't want to put people into positions of power or give them jobs based on their gender or color of skin, things like this. I'm not saying I'm for that or against that here. It's not for me to answer at this show. But be that as it may, white women are the biggest benefactors of affirmative action. And how is this? Because it's not in the law in any way, really. What it is that they marry men that have money. And in doing this, what they do is they're not really voting for the macro, right? Like for the country. They're voting what's best in their own house. And so they want to make their husband happy. And I know this sounds extremely sexist, but I'm the one calling it out. It's not being sexist, it's basically the fact. That's why Kamala Harris has done an amazing job of putting out ads that say that women are allowed to vote for however they want to once they get in that voting booth. And so you see a lot of Republicans hating this, that a woman is actually going to vote against her husband. Well, again, we're not in the 1950s here. You know, that says a lot of what you need to know about your typical Republican man, right? Like a woman is a person. She is living a life. She should have an opinion and she should be able to vote the way she wants. And Kamala Harris is actually pushing this. So I'm thinking that that's a great strategy, and it's possible that these extra women voting are going to vote their conscience and do the right thing. But I'm not sure. So let's take a look at this, because on the ballot is abortion, right? A woman's right to choose. Now, when we look at it in general, 68% of women Actually, yeah, 68% of women are pro-choice. Now, that sounds like a lot. It's definitely more than 50%, but it's not that much when you think about it. It's because Democrat women are 83% pro-choice, but Republican women are only about 48%. So it's 50-50. So you have to ask the question, is it 50-50 or are they just voting the way their husband is thinking? Because it's hard to believe that women would want to vote away their rights. It doesn't make sense. So in Nevada and Arizona, abortion is on the ballot. Now, for argument's sake, let's say you need 51% to win. It's hard to imagine that if 68% of women are pro-choice, that they're going to go and vote. And you're looking at between 51 to 68%, you're looking at a 17% difference. Is it possible that that many women are going to vote to be pro-choice, and yet they're still going to vote for Donald Trump, who very much is proud of putting Supreme Court justices in to overturn Roe v. Wade? So there's a 17% difference there that I don't know if that's coming out in the polls either. It would be very interesting to see, and we're going to end up seeing that pretty soon. So some other real quick things, if somebody hasn't voted yet, here are some things to think about. So in the last couple of days, the Wall Street Journal has come out with an article, and it says that the economy is remarkable. So whoever is going to be president and take over is going to be taking over a very good, very strong economy. Actually, the #1 economy in the world. So when you hear Donald Trump saying that everything's terrible and the economy sucks and all these things, no real professional or expert in the field actually believes that. So the economy is really good. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're having trouble in your business or something's happening, or if you lost a couple of clients, or you lost a lot of clients, or a certain business is not going the way it should because other businesses are changing that, through social media and things like this. I get that. And there's a lot of people out there who are hurting, understood. But overall, when you look at the numbers, the criteria that you would look at to see if an economy is strong or not, again, the Wall Street Journal says this economy is remarkable. Stock market is up, unemployment is down, inflation is actually down, but prices are still up, and that's where the problem is. So now we have to get smart. To whom do we attribute the problem? The prices are high because of what? Corporate greed. The government doesn't affect those prices. People can charge whatever they want. But what are we going to do about it? Well, Donald Trump says that somewhere between 10 to 60% he wants to add tariffs. Okay. Anybody in a 4th grade social studies class or economics class would tell you that a tariff is a tax. So that's going to add expense to goods and services. So there you go. And every single economist would tell you this. So putting Trump in there to raise tariffs is not going to do anything to fix the problem. However, Kamala Harris is talking about going after monopolies and going after companies who do price gouging, which that would directly affect the problem and it would make it better. Let's talk about some other things real quick. If you have health care, right, through Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act, which is it was a great piece of legislation that's helped millions upon millions of people. Donald Trump tried to get rid of it when he was in office. He almost did. And he's saying that he wants to get rid of it now. But there's nothing to replace it. So if you like your health care and you want health care and you don't want to go back to a situation where if you have a pre-existing condition, you weren't even allowed to get health care, okay, well then you have to go along with the fact that Kamala Harris wants to keep the Affordable Health Care Act. On the other side, Trump also wants to get rid of Social Security. It's very important. People pay into that their whole life, and then towards the end of their life, when they retire, now they're not going to get that. Why? Because that money is going to be needed because he wants to give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires and corporations. Does that make sense to you? It probably does make sense to you if you're a multimillionaire, but if you're a regular person or middle class, that's not going to make any sense to you. So it makes it very easy. Obviously, Kamala Harris wants to keep Social Security. So these things are very simple, and if you don't think that they're true, all you have to do is Google it. Let's talk about immigration real quick. So when we talk about immigration, how much money do you think undocumented immigrants pay into the system, which does pay Social Security and Medicare? Well, here's the first part. Undocumented immigrants, they don't get Medicare. They don't get Social Security. But they pay into the system $96 billion per year. That's something that Trump and his associates would never tell you, because it's not about immigrants or illegal or undocumented immigrants. If you haven't figured this out already, it's just plain racism. This is why when he was fact-checked about 1 million times about Haitian immigrants that are legal and working, he still talks about them in a very negative way. He even says they come from this country that's a bad country, also quote unquote black country. So we have to get down to brass tacks and call it what it is. He is just a flat out racist. He doesn't care about immigration, whether it's legal or illegal, because he doesn't even like legal immigrants that are brown or black. It's pretty simple. Going back to the economics part, here's something that's interesting. What do 16 Nobel laureates in economics, Goldman Sachs and Moody's, all have in common? They all said that Kamala Harris's economic plan is better than Donald Trump's. And Donald Trump's is more on the dangerous side. What he's going to do is he's going to end up, by raising taxes, he's going to hurt the average middle class person and poor people the most. Are rich people going to really feel it? Not so much. He's also going to raise the deficit again. And so what happens there? Well, what happens is that we're going to end up having to pay this back. And when he gives a windfall of money to rich people, if there's a possibility, again, that it raises inflation. Again, we don't want too much money chasing too few goods. So he's going to give a windfall of money to rich people. Again, this does not help the economy. Trickle-down economics doesn't work. It has never worked. Never let these people lie to you and say that it does. If you want to give $1 to somebody, stop giving it to rich people expecting that that dollar is going to get down to the lower middle classes. It doesn't happen. If you want to give that dollar away to somebody, give it to somebody in the middle class. They can actually use it. So hopefully you do the right thing. I'm really hoping, because actually democracy is on the ballot. It's very important here, because we do have somebody who's running who wants to be an authoritarian. And he said that 1 million times, and I'll just leave it at that for tonight. Please do the right thing. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.